All right. It's a weird feedback. So, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone joining us virtually. Welcome to Inclusion Week 2022. We've coined it In Focus, setting our sights on true inclusion. For those of you all who have not had the pleasure of meeting me, I'm Sonja Young, the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at the firm. You know, Inclusion Week has been a staple here at the firm for some time. It's been our opportunity to stop, be intentional, really call to the forefront the opportunity to understand how we all practice the value of inclusion. I know today and in all of our sites, we've asked that you spend some time together, whether that's around food, an activity, doing something that brings us all closer to one another. And I just want to thank all of our sites that have been busy planning events and activities to do just that. In today's room, we have folks from our staff side, our attorney side, and it is a pleasure to see you all, and thank you for setting aside the time to be with us. Pat sends his regards. He had an unfortunate family emergency to attend to, but if he were here, I'm certain he would say, return to engagement is something that he loves to see in person, and I think he'd be proud to see us all gathered today. Before we get started with our keynote speaker, I want to just take some time and shout out a few people in the room. You know, planning an event like this takes a lot of hands, and many of you all, whether you've known it or not, have been a huge help. I want to call out Sarah Seiss, who is our chair of our inclusion committee. Sarah is someone who, without a drop of a dime, I can call at the most random times, ask her opinion, her insight, but more importantly, she has given me a great sense of belonging here at the firm. And I just wanted to thank you, Sarah, for all that you do. I also want to thank my colleague, Allie Carson. Before you all got here, it was not as organized and thought out as you might see it right now. We were scattering, trying to get things going. Allie came in the room and immediately asked, how can I help? And I think at the heart of inclusion, that's really what it's about, is how can I help? How can I bring us all together and get us closer? Thank you so much, Allie. You know, one of the other individuals in the room that I would be remiss if I didn't spend some time sharing more about him is Steve Cousins. For those of you all who don't know who Steve Cousins is, he's one of the first African American equity partners here at the firm. Probably at a time where I was just entering my personal life on earth. But I will be honest, I'm an 80s baby. I'm an 80s baby. Don't take that personally. But around the time that I was just formulating my opinion of the world, Steve was embarking upon one, I would say, if we look back, probably one of the more monumental times in his career. To be the first African American equity partner at a firm of this stature says a lot about him as an individual, his quality of work, his professionalism, but it also says a lot about his character to endure, perhaps at a time where there were very few African American equity partners to whom he could look up to. And so when I joined the firm last year, I could tell you if there was no other name that I heard repeatedly, it was Steve Cousins. It's because of our PR department. Yes. Steve, I can tell you we need to patent your name. We need to do something because you are looked at as a role model to many at this firm. And as someone who looks at you as a mentor, I simply want to say thank you. And I'm certain you have a shelf somewhere filled with these. But I would ask you to come up and accept our Groundbreaker Award during this year's Inclusion Awards. Maybe one word?
One word. Well, it's tough for a lawyer to have one word. And usually when you have an occasion like this, you eat, burp, and go home. I just want to thank you with all my heart. This has been a wonderful ride, 40 years at Armstrong Teasdale. I should, while I'm receiving this award, I receive it in trust on behalf of all the lawyers and the staff who helped me throughout the whole process. And really the tribute goes to Armstrong Teasdale. They had the foresight to hire a young African American in 1980 and then make him a department head, and not only a department head, but the only associate in charge of a department. But that speaks well of Armstrong Teasdale and his foresightfulness. And it's also foresightful enough to have someone like Sarah Seiss as the chair of the equity and diversity committee, and also to hire someone of the caliber of Sandra Young, who just does so well out in the community. Your name goes far and wide. And as it relates to just age, I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago when this one young lady, I ran into her, and she said, "I see you've got a Normandy High School shirt on." She said, "When did you graduate?" Oh, I said, "Well, I graduated in 1973, and I was on the school board from 1981 to 1984." And I said, "When did you graduate from Normandy?" She said, "Well, I was born in 2000. Short conversation. Well, thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. And here's it. Thank you. Well, I want to get to, I would say, our main event, which I have to say, I was at the last conference a couple of weeks ago, and I had a chance to hear the speaker who's going to be joining us in just a minute. One of the things I love and I crave as an individual, as I'm certain you all do, is a speaker who gets me engaged. Someone who not just talks about their area of expertise, but talks about how I can learn and garner some area of growth from what they have to share. I was sitting in the audience, and I will be very honest with Steve. I said, "Oh, another speaker." And I just braced myself. And I literally walked out to get some coffee thinking, well, this will keep me perked up and alive. At least since I'm at the front of the room, I want to at least appear as though I'm engaged, but I was exhausted. I had been traveling for the last 3 weeks prior to that, and it just physically probably not been at my strongest in that moment. I walked back in the room with my coffee, and before I could get back in the room, people were laughing, people were singing. And I said, I think I've entered the wrong room. Let me go and find the room that I was just in. And when I sat back down, I can tell you firsthand, Steve left me wanting to understand more about inclusion, not just through the art of, saying it, but how do we practice it? More importantly, how do our brains process it? Because that's the piece that I think we all typically forget, is the interactions that we have human to human. They all are dependent upon how our brains need information and process information. And he helped us to process how inclusion fits into our overall neurological makeup and our overall desire to belong as individuals. And so as he was wrapping up, everyone does this at a conference where you see a speaker that you like and you're like, I'm going to get in line, I'm going to get in line. And I kept looking the room and I said, well, where did he go? I don't even see him anymore. He was running, darting out of the room with his suitcase on the way to his next speaking engagement. I took off running. I said, hey, we have Inclusion Week in 2 weeks. I would love for you to be our speaker. He said, my number, everything else is on LinkedIn. Find me. If you're serious, call me. And I called him immediately the next day. I texted him. I said, Steve, I need you to be here for Inclusion Week, because though we had other speakers in mind, I could not think of any more befitting for this setting to speak to us and speak to our hearts today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Steve Robbins.
Hello.
Hello.
How you do? My iPad other speak here. I told to turn down, right? It's very good to be here. Although I was not running to another speaking engagement. I was running to see go to Savannah, Georgia to watch my son play in the pro golf tournament.
Oh,
So any golfers here?
yes.
So he made to final stage of Corn Ferry qualifying school. So he's now a Corn Ferry tour member. So that's where I was going. Anyway, let me start out with Q&A. Almost always start out end with Q&A, start out with Q&A, but I switch it for you. I ask you question, right? What first word, first thought pop into your head when you see and hear me? Just yell out, first thought, first word pop in head. Energy, yes. 4 cups of coffee. already, right? And a little tiny espresso from hotel. Okay, what else? Intelligent. Oh yes, all Asians smart. I Asian with PhD. I super smart. No, don't believe stereotype. I know many not so smart Asians, right? What else? More word popping head. Happy, yes, very happy. Try to be happy. Anything else? I think maybe word popping head you don't want to say is Asian. Yeah, I am Asian. You could say it, right? Right? Maybe some of you think accent. Yes, I have accent, but you have accent too, right? Everybody have accent from another perspective. But I don't have the accent you think that I have. That was my very bad Mr. Miyagi accent that I learned from watching Karate Kid. Remember the original? Daniel Sano accent. Okay. Now, I don't do that accent just for fun. I do it for a reason. In graduate school at Michigan State University, a colleague of mine did a research project that he, God, this is kind of, I don't want to turn this volume off on my, there we go. No, it's not okay.
We'll make it. We'll make
Okay,
it.
all right, okay, so a colleague of mine did a research project that he ended up calling the uh-oh syndrome. So the uh-oh syndrome. The uh-oh syndrome was this. He was doing research on how would monolingual English-speaking students react to professors' accents. So he plopped himself down in these various classes that had professors who spoke with accents. He would watch, he would observe, he would listen. And as soon as these professors would start speaking with their accents, what would some of the students do? Well, my friend saw some students get up out of their seats and leave the class, never to return. Presumably because they didn't want to deal with the professor's accent. He heard students say a number of things, some of which I cannot repeat right now. And obviously he heard students say, uh-oh, 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 what he eventually named his research project. My friend ended up watching the students who decided to stay in the class. He watched them throughout the semester to see what would happen. And to make a long story short, this is what he found out. At the end of the semester, he asked the students who stayed, what was the communication like? Can you tell me a little bit more about those interactions? Many of the students said, we thought we have communication issues, but we really didn't. They said, over the course of the semester, we learned to understand and decipher words that we couldn't understand at first. Kind of like what many of us parents do with our little kids, right? Parents out there, raise your hands. I want to see who you are. When your kids were first starting to speak, could you understand every word they said? Oh, at that point, did you say, uh-oh, just drop the parenting class? Some of you probably wanted to at various points, didn't you? But you stuck around, and over the course of time, you learned to understand one another. Very simple question for all the parents. When you could not understand your kids, why did you stick around? Any answers? We love them. Okay, good. I'm glad I got that one because sometimes I get this one because I had to. Yeah, so I asked those people, did you stick around because you love them and cared about them, right? Yeah. And when we love and care about our kids and can't understand them, we put some what? Effort into understanding them. Exactly. And when we put effort into understanding them, what happens over the course of time? We learn to understand them. Until they became teenagers, and then the process started all over again for those of us who've gone through that process, right? Well, this was the key for the students in the class. The students who cared about something, whether it was their grade, the professor, or something else, when they cared about something, they put some what? Effort into understanding. And when they put effort into understanding, guess what happened for them over the course of the semester? They learned to understand things they could not understand at the beginning of the semester. So what my colleague found in his research is something that we all kind of know intuitively. And that something is this. The more effort you put into understanding, the more you understand. What? Yes, effort is positively correlated with understanding. Those who was indicated on a survey at the end of the semester that they put some effort into understanding ended up evaluating these professors with their accents as good or better as any other on the campus of Michigan State University. My colleague wrote this in his paper. He wrote, in our encounters with difference, which we will have more of in the future, we need to give others a chance. In our encounters with difference, we need to give others a chance. He wrote, I like what he wrote there, but I love what we talked about afterward. We talked about this. In our encounters with difference, we need to give ourselves a chance. We kind of flip the switch, turn the arrow. In our encounters with difference, we need to give ourselves a chance. We talked about, I love what we talked about because of this reason. See, probably like me, you've watched and observed in our society, when something is wrong, when something is broken, who do we like to go fix first? Someone else. Let's go fix the other person first, don't we? It's always the other person's fault, isn't it? But think about this for a second. At any given moment, we are the other person. At any given moment, we are the other person, and who's the only person you can truly fix? Yourself, exactly. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to help fix you. All right, we got a good crowd today. We got a good crowd because that's the best of jokes you're going to get during this little presentation. Okay. No, I'm just here to share some things that I've learned along this journey that others call diversity and inclusion. Some people refer to me as a diversity expert. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I'm a diversity expert. Why do I say that? In large part because I don't know what a diversity expert is supposed to be like. First of all, there's no university on the face of the earth where you get a PhD, a doctorate in diversity. There's no list of criteria that people come up and agreed upon that says, if you do these things, you know these other things, you're now a diversity expert. Nothing like that. If I'm an expert in anything, it's around human behavior. And I more consider myself a student of human behavior. My PhD, my doctorate is in the field of communication science. If you know anything about the field of communication science, you know it grows out two more well-known prominent fields called psychology and sociology. So you can think of me, think of me as a psychosociologist, right? I'm a psychosociologist. And what I do as a psychosociologist is I study you all, right? I look what you're like in your natural habitat, right? I look what happens to you when you encounter new and novel things. I observe how you treat other people when you don't get enough sleep, or under lots of stress, or a combination of both, and it's not very pretty at times. I'm also a thing called a cognitive neuroscientist. You know what that means? Yeah, exactly. It means I had no dates in college. I was the geek who had no dates in college. Right? No, it just means I'm a geek who studies the brain. My particular branch of neuroscience has been labeled social neuroscience. So what we in social neuroscience do is we explore, look at, observe what the brain is doing in social settings when other human beings are around. We look at how others' words and their actions impact and actually shape the human brain over time, and then how our brain influences to act when we're around other people. The coolest thing I find in social neuroscience is what we'll explore a lot during my talk today, and that cool thing is this. Hey, by the way, before I go into this, does anybody have quick access to a pair of earbuds that can be stuck into here? That way we don't have this background noise because I don't want it to bother. Is it okay? Okay. All right. Okay. So the coolest thing I find in social neuroscience is this. The human brain, our brain, is optimized to perform at its best under two group conditions. And these two group conditions are what we call necessary, but not necessarily sufficient conditions. So there needs to be some of the factors along with these conditions, but these are among the foundational conditions for sustained optimal performance by the human brain. The two conditions are these. Generally speaking, our brain wants to be around other people, or as I like to say, it wants to be part of a tribe. And then not only does it want to be part of a tribe, get this, it wants that tribe to value it, to care about it. Let's take a quick look at these two conditions and then explore them a lot further and see why they are so important for us in terms of being included and feeling like we belong. Okay. Now I'm going to be asking you some questions about the human brain. Whenever I ask you a question about the human brain, the answer probably goes back directly or indirectly to something that I've labeled as brain's primal directive. Anyone want to guess what the brain's primal directive is? Yes, I was going to give you some hints. I was going to have you think of the brothers Gibb, also known as the Bee Gees, and a great soundtrack they wrote for the movie Saturday Night Fever, And one of the seven number one songs from that movie, which is what? Staying alive. Yeah. The brain's primal directives is staying alive. So whenever I ask you a question about the human brain and you answer and you have to have the ahs in there, staying alive, you'll probably get the question correct. Let's practice that. Why does the human brain want to be part of a tribe? And you all say, yeah, if you add this piece to it, you get an A+. Okay, right. So remember, the brain developed long ago in very hostile, dangerous environments, say the Serengeti. If you were a human being, it raised the probability of survival for you if you were part of a tribe. Yeah, perfect. Oh, maybe it's USB-C. Oh, it's not USB-C, sorry. Oh. Shoot, sorry. Anyway, it raised the probability of survival if you were a human being to part of a tribe. Why? Because compare us, the human being, to the rest of the animal kingdom, for our size and weight, we are relatively weak and slow. The chimpanzee, half our size, is 3 times as strong as us. That's not even the strongest of the primates. The gorilla, 15 times stronger than us. And Kong, 1,000,000 times stronger than us. Right? Take a little baby deer, fawn. It's born. How soon after it's born does it begin to walk and run? Does anyone know? Yeah, pretty much. Within minutes, they'll be walking. Within the hour, most, if not all of them, will be running. Parents out there, how soon before a human baby walks? About a year on average, right? I can give you more examples from the animal kingdom. You can probably think of your own examples, but you kind of get the idea. We human beings, we need others to survive. Not only do we need them in the womb, our mom, we need them as soon as we're popped out of the womb. Not just for a few more minutes, hours, days, weeks, or months. We need them for another 25 more years, I'm finding out. I have 4 kids between the ages of 20 and 27. They still need mom and dad, right? So we want to be part of a tribe, be around other people. But if you notice, you can be around other people and also feel very lonely. See, being alone and loneliness are times 2 distinctly different things. So not only do we want to be part of a tribe, we want that tribe to value us, to care about us, to hold us in significance. Why is that so important to the human brain to be valued and cared about? And you say, yeah, very good. We're getting there. You're adding some notes to that. You're not just not saying that now, right? Now, imagine you're part of a tribe on the Serengeti long ago, dangerous, hostile environment. So let's say you're part of a tribe, so that first condition is met. That tribe values you, but it doesn't value you that much. You're very low in the hierarchy. Under those conditions, what happens to you when the tribe starts to run low on food and water? You're what? What'd you say? Okay, yeah, kind of. Sometimes people say they eat you, right? Right. I just say you don't get food and water. You're one of the first not to get it, right? What happens to you when the tribe starts to dabble in sacrifice? You're one of the first to be experimented on, aren't you? One of the first to be thrown off the island, so to speak. So, to be part of a tribe that value you a great deal, raise the probability of survival. Take those 2 conditions, add on some other factors, sprinkle in a ton of time, and what you get is this. The brain is hardwired to belong. Now, I'll show you the hardwiring later, the neurocircuitry for belonging. Right? And for no other reason, that's why you should be addressing issues of inclusion. Because the good work of inclusion leads to people feeling like they belong. And once that fundamental need of the brain is met, you start to unleash their cognitive capabilities. They think better, analyze reports better, think about better arguments for a courtroom, better performance by their brain. Without going into all the detail, let me ask you something. How many of you play sports, like sports, wish you were athletes, right? How important is an athlete's mental state when they walk onto the performance field? The golfer onto the golf course, the basketball player on the hard court, the football player on the gridiron, lacrosse player on their field. What's our athlete's mental state? It's huge, isn't it? Right? If you believe that to be true, then you think it's also true that when somebody walks into your firm, one of your associates walk into your firm, that if they're not in a good mental state, they're not going to be able to perform at their best. A bad mental state for a person is when they don't feel like they belong. See that? Have I piqued your interest? Intrigued you? Right, very good, very good. Okay, now, what word have I not said that often comes as a partner to the word inclusion? Well, I haven't said it very much. Diversity, right? So when you hear the words diversity and inclusion, you usually hear them in that order, don't you? Normally. I am not a diversity and inclusion guy. I am an inclusion and diversity guy. Now, I value both, so don't interpret it as I value one more than the other. But I'm an inclusion diversity guy because of this reason. The research suggests that if you don't have an environment of inclusion where people feel like they belong, diversity can actually make it worse. Let's say that again. If you don't have an environment or a culture of inclusion, diversity can actually make it worse. Why? Well, this is what we observe. Researchers observe. Imagine a homogeneous group of people very similar along substantive lines, and they don't get along. Guess what happens when you bring new and different people or new and different ideas into that mix of people? One of the things we see happen is this. Some of the people who previously did not get along, some of them start to get along. And guess what they do? Yes, they attack the new people or the new ideas coming in. They see the new people or new ideas as a common enemy, form coalitions and attack the new. It's very hard for the new person coming into an environment that's not inclusive already. Okay. Value both. Think of it more of a stepwise progression. You got to do steps one and two before you do or take advantage of what steps 3 and 4 bring you. Kind of like baking. You got to do things in the right order, correct? Not too long ago, I was making some banana bread. As I was pulling out all the ingredients to make the banana bread, my wife looks over to me. She calls out, "Hey, honey, remember to follow the recipe. You got to do things in the right order or the banana bread won't turn out very well." Well, my banana bread turned out perfectly. You know why? Because my wife was overseeing the project the whole way through. She knows my history around following directions. So value both, because diversity of thought, diversity of perspectives, diversity of journeys is very powerful for creative thinking, innovation, and complex problem solving. That's what the research suggests. Okay. All right, let me pause here. Any questions so far? I want to make this more of a conversation, come more like a graduate level class instead of an undergrad class where I'm just speaking to you. Any questions? Do you have any questions? Do you want anything? Know anything about me? I often ask that question if I have time because, see, context matters to the human brain. What you know about me or know about a speaker impacts how you interpret the words. Okay? Whatever's swirling in your head at any given moment in time influences how you interpret things or make judgments about things. As an example, if I kneel in a place of worship, that's often seen as reverent, respectful by many people, correct? If I kneel during the national anthem of a sporting event in the United States, some people don't see that as reverent and respectful, correct? Kneeling in and of itself without context is just someone kneeling. Put into different contexts based on different databases in the room, you have different interpretations. Okay. So with that said, anything you want to know about me? Anything you want to know about my origin story? Where do I live? In a very cold place called Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay. My favorite fictional book. I don't read a lot of fiction, but if I had to say one, Crime and Punishment. What's part of my family? I was born in Vietnam. Yeah, but my wife is she's German American, 6 foot tall, German blonde. Her family's been in the United States since 1834. Still own the 140-acre farm that they
founded in Westphalia, Michigan. So I'm never leaving Michigan. There's a question over here. Who's my favorite child? Well, I should say that it used to be my daughter, and then she became a traitor and went to the University of Michigan. You should have never pointed yourself out. But I'm rooting for Michigan this weekend when they play next weekend when they play Ohio State. So, excuse me. I went to a four-year Christian college called Calvin College, and then got my master's PhD at Michigan State. Yeah, we won yesterday 2 overtimes against Kentucky. I'm a big sports fan. I actually went to school originally to be a sportscaster. So, anything else you want to know? I want to know how to get rid of this noise. Anything else? Hey, please ask questions along the way. I know I'm going to be getting some complex things about the brain, and unless you know a little bit about the brain, it can be hard to understand at times. So please ask questions along the way. Yes. Did you bring a box of tissues or have waterproof mascara on? Okay, so I will tell that story at the end because it will probably make some of you cry. Okay. Yes.
Academic
My act, yeah.
I think it's very interesting. Remember you said still.
Social psychology. You were left when I said that to the group.
Oh, okay.
You were out getting coffee again because you didn't think I was going to be very good.
You could be good for a second time.
No, yeah. How did I become? I'm not an I'm a student of human behavior, right? I don't consider myself an expert really in anything. Some people would consider me an expert in human behavior in the brain, but I consider myself a student of human behavior, right? Once you truly see yourself as an expert, I shouldn't say this. Open-minded experts know that when they become experts, they know there's so much more to be learned, right? That's what a true expert learns over time. There's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? It's when the average person thinks they know more than the expert. Because it's when the average person with the internet knows more about COVID than the epidemiologists who studied it for 2 decades. Right? Because the average person or the novice, because they don't know much, sees the phenomenon as simple, and simple phenomena have simple solutions. The expert goes, oh, that's much more complex once you understand what's going on, and it has a complex solution. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes. Dunning-Kruger. 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 It's a bias. It's actually a bias. We'll talk about bias. Oh man, let's just talk about bias right now. This is why I use this thing, because people always ask me, Steve, why don't you use PowerPoint? You have a PhD in communication. Why don't you use PowerPoint? And I go, because I have a PhD in communication, that's why I don't use PowerPoint. It's not that PowerPoint can't be used well. People just tend to put way too much information on a PowerPoint slide. And then the brain does this, it goes, it reads every bullet point and goes, hey, let me check my texts. What was the question again? Oh, no, the question is bias. How many of you have taken some unconscious bias training? Right? Waste of time. Waste of time. What's the hard part about addressing unconscious bias? It's unconscious. How do you address something you have to have conscious access to in order to address it well? Right? Let me walk back my statement just a little bit, because you can address it, you have to know how to do it well. When I asked you if you took some unconscious bias training and you raise your hand, you probably didn't take any training. It was not a training workshop. It was an educational workshop, right? In an educational workshop, hopefully you get some good information and enhance your knowledge about some topic. Training is very different, at least in my mind, because I come from a sports perspective. I played 2 collegiate sports. 2 of my 4 kids have been Division I athletes. Training is all about practice. And in order to acquire any type of skill, you need to practice. The practice of law doesn't get very well if all you know is concepts. Don't confuse education or educational workshops with training workshops. The easy part is listening to someone like me give you some information, knowledge about an area. The hard part is taking that information and practicing something so you acquire skill. Okay. If that doesn't make sense, think of the difference between education and training this way. Would you like your kids to have sex education or sex training? Now it makes more sense, right? Now it makes more sense. You know why? I won't go any further. Okay. You're covering that one. Okay. Let's learn a little bit about the brain. If we're going to learn about human behavior, we need to know something about the brain. And here's my approach. Fundamentally, I'm teaching you about human behavior. We'll take what we learn about human behavior and apply it to a topic area. Today, it's inclusion and diversity, equity issues. But you can take some of the things we learned today and apply them on how to be a better father, better mother, how to enhance your relationships with your kids, how to handle the uncle who comes over and talks about politics over Thanksgiving, right? So we're going to learn about human behavior, and that starts with the brain. Let's learn some things about the brain. As you probably know, the brain is pretty complex. So I have to kind of get your brain going to process complex information. I have to get your neurons, your synapses online. Your brain has to kind of be warmed up to process complex information. I used to be a college professor. I'd have these 8 o'clock morning classes where students would roll in kind of sleepy or kind of drunk, often a combination of both. I had a way to find a way to wake up their brains. Very easy for me. I just gave them a simple math problem to do. So let's do a simple math problem to wake up our brains. For those of you who are mathophobic, do not worry. It's very easy. It's simple addition. I'm going to give you a series of numbers to add up. Add them up silently in your head. Don't do it out loud. Don't do it on your phone or a piece of paper. Do it silently in your head. And then when I ask for the answer, then yell it out. Got it? Very easy stuff. You're going to add up a bunch of rounded numbers. There's no decimals, no fractions. If there's ever going to be a time you're going to get a math problem right, this is the time. It's that easy. Okay. So let's begin with the number 1,000 into your head. Again, do it silently until I ask for the answer. To that 1,000, add 40. Add another 1,000. Add 30. Add another 1,000. Add 20. Add another 1,000. Add 10. What's the answer? 5,000. Raise your hand if you got 5,000. Raise your hand if you got 5. Keep them raised. In fact, if you got 5,000, that tells me your brain is working. If you got 5,000, stand up. Everybody stand up. Who got 5? I want to applaud the people who got 5,000. Come on, stand up. Okay, very good. Now, let's just see if your brain is working correctly. Before I had you add 10, you arrived at 4,090. Is that not right? What's 4,090 plus 10? 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1 over. Oh, man. Many of you suck at math. The answer is not 5,000. It is 4,100. Right? Not enough Asians in the room, I say. Yeah, don't believe that stereotype either. I know lots of Asians who suck at math. Do not worry if you got this wrong. I do this all around the world with many different audiences. Every single time, a majority of the people get it wrong. Why? Well, first of all, it's not a measure of math intelligence, which is a good thing. It's not a measure of general intelligence, but it does give us some indication of some of the things our brain really, really loves. Okay. Based on what you saw here, how a bunch of what I would assume to be relatively smart people when it comes to simple addition, how a bunch of you got a simple addition problem wrong. What might be one thing your brain really, really loves that helps it with the primal directive of staying alive? What's it always seeking? Patterns. Your brain loves patterns. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It loves patterns so much, you'll find patterns where patterns don't exist. Right? Let's look at why our brain loves patterns so much, though. There's some reasons why. We're going to ask the question, why does your brain love patterns from two perspectives, right? A psychological perspective and a neuroscience perspective. Now, just for your information, the psychologists and the neuroscientists look at slightly different things. Psychologist studies the mind, the neuroscientist studies the brain. Think of it as software versus hardware, okay? We're going to ask the software question first. Why does our brain love patterns from a psychological perspective? Any thoughts? Likes to make shortcuts, but that's more from a neuroscience perspective, but they're kind of interchangeable. For what? Predictability, or it's kind of related to that and shortcut thing. It hates uncertainty. Your brain pretty much hates uncertainty. That's why most people don't like change. Why would our brain hate uncertainty? For survival. What happens if you're on the Serengeti long ago? You're coming up around a bend and you don't know what's around the bend. Yeah, you start to get stressed. It doesn't go all the way down.
Yes, that's we tried that. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens if you don't know when your next meal is coming? What happens if you can't predict things? Right? Our brain hates uncertainty. High levels of uncertainty produce high levels of stress in us. And without going into the neurobiology of it all, and the physiology of it all, chronic stress, our body can't handle very well. Our body can handle intermittent levels of stress. It goes up and down very quickly. Like our stress system was designed for being chased by lions. How long did that stressor last? Not very long. When you're stressed, adrenaline and cortisol enter your system to help you be faster, stronger, focus better. So moderate levels of stress for short periods of time actually help you perform better. What happens though, if cortisol, this thing that helps you for short periods of time, stays in your system? Cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol starts to eat away at your brain cells and it ages you faster. That's what chronic stress does. Eventually leads to the #1 killer of men and women in the United States, heart disease. Right? What are today's modern lions? Could be work for some, COVID for others, credit card bills for others. Things that keep you at high levels of stress for long periods of time, or a sucky boss. Is that what you meant by work? No, because that's not your boss. We're talking about other boss. Okay. So so another thing, your brain hates uncertainty. It wants predictability. Here's the thing. Your brain will create a story to get rid of uncertainty, and the story might not be true. But it'd rather have a false story than be in a state of uncertainty. There's an argument that's why religions do for people. Religions give people stories about phenomena in the world, so there's less uncertainty. Now let's go to the neuroscience perspective, hardware. Why does your brain love patterns from a hardware perspective? Anyone know? One word answer, 4 letters. Kind of like Wordle, but no. L. Yes, who got that? Who said that? It's lazy. I can do it in 1 letter. Okay. lazy. Your brain's kind of lazy. Your brain's kind of lazy. But it doesn't like to be called lazy. In fact, it's kind of like you. When you're called lazy, how do you spin it positively? I'm not lazy, honey. I am efficient. Exactly. We know that your brain, the human brain, runs on an efficiency principle, which means it's always trying to conserve energy. To understand that piece better, you need to know some basic neurobiology. In the average human adult, the brain accounts for about 2% of our body mass, but requires about 20% of our body's energy at any given moment in time. For its size and weight, it uses a disproportionate amount of energy. And this is not fake or imaginary energy. It's energy in the form of what? Do you know? Glucose. Your brain primarily runs on glucose, sugars. Processing information requires energy. Thinking requires energy. How many have had these days where you start the day refreshed, you're energized, you're feeling good? You go throughout the day, do nothing really physical, but in the day, completely exhausted. You ever have those days? Yeah, you're probably in your third day this week, right? You know why? It's because thinking actually requires energy. But with that said, you cannot lose weight by thinking really hard. Okay. Theoretically, you could, but very few of us, if any of us in this room, would get to that point. They did a cool study to show that when chess masters play other chess masters in a high-level tournament, they burn as many calories, use as much energy as a marathon runner running a marathon. Okay. So when somebody says they're mentally tired, mentally fatigued, that's a thing. Hey, what are you like when you're mentally tired and fatigued? Cranky, crabby, right? Let me give you a scenario for the parents. See if this is true. Okay, parents, I got there. I want to see your hands again. Okay, it's morning time. You've had a good night's rest. You've got your 8-9 hours of sleep. Feeling good, positive mood. You're sitting at the breakfast table with your kids. In the middle of breakfast, one of your kids spills milk all over the floor. Glasses everywhere, milk is everywhere. When you're in a happy, energized mood, how do you respond to that situation? What's your response to the kid? It's okay, buddy. Accidents happen. Let's clean it up and get you off to school. Right? Yeah, right. Everybody says it right. Okay. Now you've had a hard day at work. You've had to deal with people, right? Right? You're tired, you're stressed. You're at dinner time now with your kids. In the middle of dinner, one of them spills their milk all over the floor. Glass, milk everywhere. Now how do you respond to that situation? You were adopted. Our better angels tend not to come out when we're tired and stressed. Right? That's what Snickers is there for. Oh, but that's the wrong type of sugar. Any questions about that? You see that? Did you know that your brain uses that much energy? It counts for 1/5 of the energy that you use. And being mentally tired is a thing. And it has an impact on how you judge and decide, make decisions. When you're tired, you tend not to take in all the variables, process all the variables, because that requires more energy. And then you come to a quick decision. When it comes to judging and analyzing people, would you agree, first of all, that people are multivariable persons? We're complex, correct? For our brain to adequately and accurately assess a person, we have to take a lot of those variables in, crunch them in, come out with a conclusion. When you're tired, guess what you do? You went to Michigan. You must be a bad person. We reduce it down to one variable or 1 or 2 variables. Guess what? Our brain profiles very badly when it's tired. Any questions about that? Comments? Any?
They're like categories that
When it comes to people, and I'll get to this in a second. This is every inclusion and diversity issue. Insider, versus outsider. Your brain reduces people down to, are you part of my group or not part of my group? That's because our brain is tribal, it sees people as from a tribal perspective, right? We'll get into that a little bit in a second. It would rather err on seeing somebody as bad than seeing someone as good. Why? For survival reasons, right? So if you're actually a nice person, my brain, but I don't know you, my brain sees you first initially as if you're not part of my tribe. If I don't think you're part of my tribe, my brain is very kind of standoffish. It would rather err seeing you as a bad person, although you're good, as a protection mechanism. What were you gonna say? Comments? Anybody? Okay. We'll get into this in a second, though. I need to teach you some more about the brain, though, before we go to inside or outsider. Let me give you 2 words to describe the operation of the human brain. And these 2 words I'm about to give you are very simple. The brain is much more complex than this, but we don't have enough time to get into all complexities. So these words I'm about to give you are metaphorical, they're not literal. Very simple. Go back to that math problem that many of you got wrong. You saw that math problem using what I have labeled your modern brain. If you read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, we refer to it as System 2. Your modern brain is your frontal cortex. It's the area of the brain that sits behind the eyes. It's your executive center. Your modern brain was designed to think about things, think through things. Another word for thinking is cognition. Your modern brain can analyze, it can plan. It can do planning, for example, because it has this other ability that we call metacognition. Anyone know what metacognition means? Let me give you some hints. A meta study is a study of studies. A meta-analysis is an analysis of analyses. If cognition is thinking, what is metacognition? Yes, you can go to law school now. You passed the LSAT. Metacognition is a uniquely human ability. We don't see other animals that can do it, or at least do it to the degree that we can. Metacognition, thinking about thinking, simply this. We can think about and reflect upon our own thoughts. We can evaluate our own thoughts and feelings. Okay? We can do it in the present, meaning we can be aware of what's going on in the present. But get this, we can also think about and evaluate things that have never occurred before. We can conjure up scenarios that have never existed and evaluate. This is what you do when you do business planning or goal setting. Okay. We can also live in the past. We can recall situations that we've been in and ask ourselves, did I like that vacation to Jamaica, or do I want to go somewhere else? Right. So we can live in the present, the future, and the past because of metacognitive abilities. Other animals are always basically living in the present. They don't think about their own thoughts. A lot of it has to do with self-awareness, which we don't know other animals that can do that. Some primates, dolphins, kind of. All right, so back to the math problem. You start the math problem using your modern brain. But once you think you found a pattern in a quest to conserve energy, because your modern brain uses a lot of energy, you move into what I have labeled your ancient brain. And your ancient brain was not designed to think about things. It was designed to quickly react to things without thinking. And the faster you can react, the less energy you use. It bases its reactions on past experiences. Your ancient brain does not evaluate past experiences like the modern brain because it doesn't have metacognitive abilities. It makes associations. Remember Ivan Pavlov and his dog? That's your ancient brain doing operant conditioning. Okay. So it uses past experiences to write simple rules. A fancy name for those simple rules is heuristics. To make this maybe easier to understand, let's talk about it this way. When you encounter situation A and you do B and C outcome occurs and you like C outcome, your brain notes that. If this happens over and over and over again, your brain notes a pattern and writes you a line of code that basically goes, if A, then B, hopefully C. Where's the problem that might arise? It's when you think you've encountered A, but you've actually encountered X. But because you thought you encountered A, did B. But now, since it's X plus B instead of A plus B, Z outcome occurs, and you don't like Z outcome. Your ancient brain, because it wants to do things very quickly, in a quest to conserve energy, leaves out variables. It doesn't take a lot of all the information or a ton of information. It takes in one or two pieces of information. Okay. Answer this question for me, everybody. How many of every animal did Moses bring onto the ark? Moses brought no animals on the ark. That'd be Noah. That's your ancient brain going, oh, I think I know this. It doesn't take full info. It doesn't think through what was asked. If I asked you to, before you answer, think through what I asked, more of you would have got it right if you know the stuff like that, right? Say this word out loud 10 times for me. I'll ask a question, you answer. The word is top. Got it? We'll say it out loud 10 times. So I want to hear you out loud. I'll ask, you answer. Ready? Top, 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 top. What do you do to green light? Your brain picks up a pattern, and the pattern's momentum leads you to an answer that sounds right. Your brain often goes what sounds right, and what sounds right is not necessarily what's right. I can make you look stupid all day if I wanted to. I don't have time for that. Just to narrow things down or simplify things down for us in the modern brain as comparison, for comparison purpose, your modern brain is your thinking brain. It's the mindful brain. Your ancient brain is your mindless brain. Problem is we live life rather mindlessly every day. Of our waking hours, we spend 70 to 80% of our time in our ancient brain. It pops up to 90% under stress. We're very reactive most of the time, and even more reactive under stress. It's not that we can't use our modern brain, it's that we don't practice very often. That's what mindfulness meditation can help do. A little bit more about your ancient brain. The capital city, so to speak, of your ancient brain, which is really your limbic system. Capital city of your ancient brain, your limbic system, is what's called the amygdala. You don't know what the amygdala is known for? What? Go ahead. What? I didn't hear it. No, it's hippocampus. Fight or flight. Actually, there's more than fight. There's actually 4 Fs. Does anyone know the other 2? So we got fight, flight. What's the other one? Freeze and sex. Neuroscience 101 joke. Okay. Some of you got it. I picked it up already. Okay. You get a funny neuroscience professor. That's what we'll say. Yes. The amygdala is highly involved in procreation. All right. Any questions? Let me pause here. Any questions? Or any questions from virtual world? Anything? Nothing? They do, but that's not your modern brain. Right? Think of it this way. Your modern brain, how many are Marvel comic fans? Okay. Your modern brain is Dr. David Banner. Your ancient brain is then who? Hulk. What does Hulk do? Smash. Hulk does anything he wants to do, right? And here's the thing, Hulk does not think about consequences. When Hulk smashes things, she doesn't go, am I going to hurt somebody? Why? Can't. Hulk doesn't have metacognitive abilities. Thinking about consequences implies thinking about the future. and you have to have metacognition to be able to think about the future. Hulk doesn't have that. So Hulk can get anxious. Dr. Banner gets anxious, and he gets anxious enough, he turns into Hulk. Right? You get anxious enough, you get stressed enough, you turn into Hulk. And sometimes then you go Hulk on people, don't you? Right? You probably know you've gone Hulk on somebody if you've ever had to say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't said that. All right. Any questions about ancient and modern brain? We tend to be very reactive. We want to believe that we are very thoughtful during our day. The research doesn't suggest that. Right. Another thing is we tend to believe that when we encounter somebody or hear an idea, we run the information through a calculus, an algorithm, and spit out a conclusion. We analyze every situation. We don't do that, right? We don't use our modern brain when we, most of the time, in encountering people or encountering ideas, we use our ancient brain. And our ancient brain is much more about emotion. So get this, we tend to judge people emotionally more than cognitively. We do it so much, there's a term for it. It's called affective primacy. Another word for emotion is affect. I encounter you, I hear one of your beliefs, and I get a gut feeling or emotion. And that emotion, which is processed by the ancient brain first, that signal gets sent to the modern brain, and then the modern brain comes down, and guess what it does? It confirms the emotion. Instead of going, hey, should we have that emotion? Why should we have that? I mean, what's causing that? How do I overcome it? That takes practice. Let's get back to insider outsider. That's where we are. Remember I said earlier, I'm going to show the neural circuitry for belonging. We're about there right now. The first thing that your brain wants to do is identify threat. Long ago was physical threat. Today it's psychological and emotional threat, or idea threat. Is your idea threaten my ideas? In order to do that very quickly, it reduces people and their beliefs and ideas down to in-group versus out-group. And here's where biases come into play. Our brain has a natural positive bias towards in-group members and a natural negative bias towards out-group members for survival reasons. It errs on the side of seeing the insider as relatively safe and looking at the outsider as something that's threatening. That making sense? Which then leads to a certain bias that we call fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution error basically says this: we have a tendency to make mistakes on how we attribute things to people and why they do certain things. Okay? Our reasoning tends to be poor when it comes to reasoning for an insider and an outsider. Meaning, if an insider and an outsider do the exact same thing, we have a tendency to give different reasons for why they do those things, just because they're insiders and outsiders. Let me give you a fun example of that. As you know, I'm a proud Michigan State Spartan. As a proud Michigan State Spartan, I have a green S on my license plate. Stands for state. If you look at all the cars in a household, there's a green S on the license plate or a Spartan head. So it's everybody in my family, we are loyal citizens of Spartan Nation. We are good people. Other people in my state of Michigan, other very bad people in my state of Michigan, they have a blue M on their license plate. They're a University of Michigan Wolverine. And anytime anybody drives by me with a blue M on their license plate, they cut me off, they veer right in front of me, because that's what those people do. They're genetically encoded to treat other people poorly. They're animals. Wolverines is in their name. How could they not be, right? But here's the deal, though. If a person with a green S on their license plate drives by me and cuts me off, I'll probably say, they didn't see me. Notice something. A Spartan, an insider to me, cuts me off the road. A Wolverine, an outsider, cuts me off the road. but have a tendency to give different reasons for why they do so. Why is the Wolverine cut me off on the road? Because they're idiots. That's actually true, though. I know I kid with you a lot, but speaking truth there. Okay. Why is the Spartan cut me off the road? They didn't see me. All else being equal, we tend to give the benefit of the doubt to the insider and judge the outsider much more harshly, even when they do the same thing. Right? But I want to know, that's usually your ancient brain giving you the quick reaction. Oh yeah, by the way, that reaction comes in less than 0.25 seconds. That's how fast it comes. Let me give another example of fundamental attribution error. An outsider's on welfare. Why is the outsider on welfare? Because they're lazy. They don't work hard enough, right? We all know that. An insider's on welfare. Why is the insider on welfare? Bad luck or economy, right? COVID. Again, that's your ancient brain, not thinking through. What happens if you practice bringing your modern brain online, thinking brain? This is what could happen. How many of you heard of stories of outsiders in our world, in our society? Some of them work very, very hard and get nowhere, still on welfare. How many of you heard stories like that before? Yeah, all of us have, right? How many of you know insiders who are downright lazy? Yeah, we all do. They're coming over next week. They're called relatives. See, our modern brain can sift through more of the information and go, there are good and bad outsiders, and there are bad, good insiders. Our ancient brain doesn't do that. It goes insider good, outsider bad, right away. What you have to practice is going, wait a second here. Am I thinking through this? And as I said earlier, your brain doesn't use much information to judge people. Your brain doesn't go, hey, I don't have enough information about you, so I won't judge you. I'll wait until I have more information, right? Your brain goes, I have one piece of information and I'll judge you. Example, back to Michigan State. I was at London's Heathrow Airport before the pandemic, waiting for a flight home after a talk. And this guy off in the distance, he has this white jacket on with what looks like a green Michigan State S on it. He could be my Spartan homie in London. He gets closer and closer. Oh, by the way, at Michigan State, we have a secret verbal handshake. Okay, right? And see if there's any Spartans in the room. Go green. No Spartans in the room. Because if there was a Spartan room, they would have gone go white. Our colors are green, white. So our secret verbal handshake is go green, go white. So this guy's coming closer, closer. Within hearing distance, I yell out, go green. He looks over and goes, go white. He is my Spartan homie. I can trust him. He could be a serial killer for all I know, right? But based on that one green S, I deem him to be an insider, relatively safe, less threatened. You know what? Sometimes that green S is a tattoo on a person. Sometimes the green S is the type of clothes people wear, the length of their hair or lack of hair. Sometimes that green S is somebody's skin color, perceived sexual orientation, how tall or short they are. Our brain doesn't use much information to judge people. Okay. And then some people ask me, well, see, aren't smarter people better at doing that? The research doesn't show that. You know what the research says about smarter people, more intelligent people? Smarter people are better at rationalizing their judgment. They're better at telling themselves why they're right. Right. All right. Here we are. The neural circuitry for belonging. How much time? All right, yes, sir. In 2002, UCLA neuroscientists were asking the question, what's going on in the human brain when a person doesn't feel like they belong? It's been rejected by a group they want to belong to or need to belong to, right? So they devised an experiment. They brought subjects in to play a game on a computer screen with two other people. So we got a subject, we got two other people. Oh, by the way, the subject thought they were people, but they were not real people. They were computer-coded avatars. They were playing a simple game of catch and throw, throwing a virtual object back and forth to one another. Everybody was included at first. While this was happening, the subject's brain was being scanned. Oh, that's a side view, bad side view of the human brain. Okay. So the subject's brain was being scanned for activity. Well, somewhere along the line, the researcher had programmed the avatars to stop throwing the ball to the subject. The subject essentially, effectively, was made to be a what? An outsider, right? An outsider. When this happened, in subject after subject, this is what they observed. 2 areas of the subject's brain lit up. First area, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. The second area, the right ventral prefrontal cortex. These 2 areas of the brain lit up when the person was rejected by the group. Interesting enough, these are also the same 2 areas of the brain that light up when we human beings experience physical pain. Their pain centers lit up. But their pain centers did not light up in response to being slapped, punched, or kicked. Nothing physical. Their pain centers lit up in response to being left out of a computer game in an experiment that they volunteered for, an artificial condition, and their pain centers still lit up. Researchers eventually named the phenomenon they observed the social pain rejection, the social pain of outsiderness. This is why bullying is so bad. It is literally painful to the brain. So you get slapped, that's one subjective experience. You get ridiculed or humiliated in a group that you value. This a different subjective experience, the same pain centers light up. Literally painful to the brain. What are you thinking right now as I go? I have more to tell you, but what are you thinking right now? Tell me what you're thinking about right now. What? It's crazy. It is crazy. Have you ever thought about that way? That not belonging is painful to the brain? Does it make sense though? Okay, you got to think about it this way. Why does pain exist in mammalian systems in human beings? But what's this? Yeah, this tells us something is wrong in the system. What's wrong in the system, or what's wrong if you no longer belong to a tribe? Say it. Chance of survival goes on. This is about survival. That's why the pain signal goes there when we are not attached to a group. It goes, although we live in the year 2022, there is a part of our brain that still thinks on Serengeti long ago. It's trying to stay alive. Now, here's a why does inclusion impact performance? It has to do with pain. How well do you operate under pain? Not well. Okay, let's say over the weekend you break your ankle. Come into work on Monday. Your ankle really hurts. How well do you concentrate? Probably not well, at least sustained concentration. You go up and down, periods up and down. That's what happens. When you get a signal of pain is a 5-alarm bell to the brain. It has to mobilize cognitive resources to address the pain. And I say mobilize cognitive resources. What we think is here. The DACC detects the pain, and then the RVPC basically does this. What are we going to do about it? Right? Because this in their studies, this lit up first, and immediately after this area lit up. We surmise that it's going. Here's the pain. What are we going to do about it? Pain requires this thing called attention. Attention is a cognitive resource that's mobilized to address pain. But here's something you need to know about pain, about attention. It can only be in one place at a time. Attention is here, or it's here, or it's here, or it's there. You probably heard of the term divided attention. No such thing. Which means this, and some of you are not going to like what I'm about to say because you bought into the narrative. Can't multitask. You literally cannot multitask, not figuratively. Why? Because researchers have found another region of your brain, about right here, that they've labeled Brodmann's Area 10, BA10 for short. Brodmann's Area 10 is chiefly responsible for deciding what you pay attention to. But here's the deal with Brodmann's Area 10. It only makes one decision at a time. It operates in serial fashion, not parallel fashion, right? Think of Brodmann's Area 10 as air traffic control at a single runway airport. How many planes can land at one time at a single runway airport? One. What happens when multiple planes try to land at one time at a single runway airport? Bad stuff, right? At an airport on a runway, planes will land at certain time intervals, every hour, every couple hours, whatever it is. Well, research suggests to us that Brodmann's Area 10 also makes decisions about what you pay attention to at certain time intervals. That time interval turns out to be approximately every 7 milliseconds, every 7/1000th of a second. That sounds fast, doesn't it? Do you have anything to relate it to how fast it is? Blink your eyes. When you blink your eyes, that takes you approximately, oh, I forgot a zero, 350 milliseconds. So when you believe you're multitasking, you're actually fast toggling, fast switching at a rate that's 50 times faster than you can blink your eyes. Okay. If the tasks are repetitive, you've done them a lot, they're not very complex, you can fast switch. And it appears as if you're multitasking, but technically you're not. The problem comes in when a task becomes complex, right? That's when a meta study of multitasking studies tell us that when you try to multitask with things that require your attention, you're about 20 to 30% less productive, less efficient, and will make more mistakes. This is why driving and texting is akin to driving drunk. Okay? Because when you think you're driving and texting, you're actually just fast toggling between the text and driving. That make sense? Okay. Now the question may be, why is Steve talking about the brain's inability to multitask in a session on inclusion and diversity? Well, let me lay down the logic for you. There's a reason for it. When you feel like an outsider, you suffer what researchers have labeled social pain. When you experience pain, whether social or physical, your brain has to pay attention to the pain. How many things can your brain pay attention to at any given moment in time? What did we just learn? One. Okay. Now, with that knowledge in your head, let me lay out a scenario for you. And as I lay out this scenario, think about if you've ever been in it or you observed it happen. A person has been asked to share an idea at a meeting. They share their idea in front of their colleagues. As they share their idea, other people in the meeting attack the idea. Are you following? Okay. These people think they're doing it humorously. This person doesn't see it that way. And since the idea is an extension of them, they interpret it as an attack on them. So at least momentarily, they feel like an outsider, suffering social pain. Their brain has to pay attention to the pain. Their brain can only pay attention to one thing at a time. If their brain can only pay attention to one thing at a time, what are they not doing very well eating? Not doing their presentation very well. They're not listening to others very well, because this is what's happening at least part of the time in their brain. Why are they doing this to me? How do I get them to stop? This hurts. Ever seen that happen before? Not here, other places though. An hour later, the meeting's over. This person goes back to their workspace. Did they forget about what happened in the meeting? When did they forget about what happened in the meeting? Maybe never. Consider this. There are people who in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who still see psychotherapists on a regular basis because of things that happened to them when they were 13, 14, 15 years old. That's how powerful this is. Yeah. A little louder. She said it seems like to her that that when people experience something like that, they tend to perpetuate down the line. The research suggests a part of that's true with bullies. People who are bullied tend to bully other people when they have the power to, or when the environment gives them the power to. Not all the research suggests that, but some research suggests it. Good observation. Anything else? You're stunned, aren't you? You're like, we were having so much fun earlier to learn about the brain now. Okay. Yeah, Sanji. Leaders first, because leaders in an organizational setting, when I work with leaders, I say, you are the keepers of culture. You are responsible for culture, but culture will build without your input. Culture doesn't care if you're paying attention to it. It will build. It may not build the way you want to build, but it will build. It will develop, right? And all culture is, if you want to simplify everything down, all culture is patterns of behavior you might observe in any particular group. I go into organizations, I ask them, what's your culture? And they give me a little piece of paper and go, hey, this is our culture right here. You can read about our culture. We've got values, we got pillars of success. This is our culture. They build our culture. And I go, that's what you say your culture is. You know how you want to learn what your culture is? You observe patterns of behavior. What do people do when they walk by each other? Do they just walk by each other? Or do they say, hey, how are you doing today? What can I help you with? As an example, right? Do people even in organizations say please and thank you? Sometimes we overcomplicate them. Look at the patterns of behavior. And ultimately it comes down to this. What type of culture you want? A caring culture. Put simply this way. When you feel cared about people that you value, you feel like you belong. Right? For some, caring sounds warm and fuzzy, because it is. But know this, warm and fuzzy matters to the brain. Right? When you feel good, you tend to operate better. So too many of us men have been taught what? About emotions. Don't show them. They're a sign of weakness. Oh, we can show them, you know when we can show them? When there's a ball around. A football, a baseball, a basketball. Then we can laugh and cry. We can hug. We can pat each other in the rears when there's a ball around. You take a ball away, and that's a no-no, right? So we historically, men have led organizations, and if men have been taught that emotions are a sign of weakness, what type of culture do you think those men will build? One devoid of culture, weaknesses. I'm here to tell you that the brain, emotions, affect matter to the human brain. Here's another thing. How many ever been asked to share an idea at a meeting in front of a bunch of leaders? Okay, and then when you share their idea, the leaders in the room, a leader, a couple leaders, they show executive presence. So they don't react. They don't give any nonverbal cues to us how well you're doing. Right? They do, they may be liking what you're saying, but it's executive presence. You sharing the idea, what are you interpreting? They don't like it. Okay. I tell that to leaders. As leaders, they need to be encouragers. There's certain things that we've been taught by our society, and then we say we, and that don't fit with how the brain works. It's on you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was, being here.
Oh, 5 more minutes. Okay, I gotta share. I gotta give you the root cause of our quote unquote diversity issues, inclusion issues. The root cause. We're trying to address symptoms of this problem. When we say we got to solve our inclusion diversity issues, we'll never solve them unless we solve this issue. Closed-mindedness. Right? Closed-mindedness is the root cause of our inclusion issues. Let me put it simply this way. Do you think open-minded people have fewer problems with differences than closed-minded people? Generally speaking, yes. Right? So we need to address or become more open-minded and curious. How do we practice that open-mindedness? Well, open-mindedness requires your modern brain, your thinking brain. Curiosity requires your thinking modern brain. How do we practice open-mindedness? Because you can't just say, I'm going to be more open-minded. You have to practice it. The scenario is this. Somebody's expressed a belief, a worldview that you do not like. Your first gut reaction is, this is stupid, right? First of all, be self-aware, use your metacognitive ability and go, inside I just said this is stupid. And then ask yourself 3 questions. First question, this is how you practice open-mindedness. What journey did they walk? What experiences did they have that led them to certain conclusions about the world that are very different from yours? What database do they have that they're drawing their conclusions from, which might be different than yours? This is a practice in external curiosity. Trying to understand them better while temporarily suspending judgment. Another word for being curious or open-minded is, I use the word entertain. Like entertain new ideas. And I use that word because there's a quote from Aristotle that goes, the measure of a wise person is the ability to entertain new ideas without necessarily having to accept them. The second question then is very similar to the first. Instead of what journey did they walk, what journey did I walk? What experiences did I have? Led me to certain conclusions about the world that are very different from theirs. This is a practice in internal curiosity or introspection. And I find that very few of us take the time to ask ourselves why we believe things we believe. Do you believe them? Do we believe things we believe because we actually did research, thought about it, asked some other people from different perspectives about it, then drew a conclusion? Or do we believe it because someone we like said it? As you probably know, you study communication. This thing about source credibility, often the source of the message is more important than the message itself. If I like you, I tend to believe what you have to say without doing action. If I don't like you, I tend not to believe what you have to say without doing action. Don't be that person. In fact, the attorneys in the room were taught not to be that person. Final question presupposes we live in a shades of gray world. A shades of gray world is one in which you cannot definitively, objectively prove that you are right and they are wrong. A shades of gray world is one in which you get multiple valid perspectives. Okay? In such a shades of gray world, which most of the time we operate in, ask yourself this third and final question. Why am I so certain that I am right and they are wrong if I can't objectively prove it? Why am I so certain that they are wrong and I'm right if there can be multiple valid perspectives here? Once a person becomes certain about something, they close the door to new information, and it usually requires new information for them to change their way of thinking or cognitive path, right? As certainty increases, curiosity decreases. There's an inverse relationship between the two. Get this, certainty is the enemy of curiosity, right? But curiosity is the hallmark of a person with a growth mindset, a person who is a continuous learner. Let me just illustrate why curiosity and open-mindedness is so important. Start with the math problems, end with one. What's 4 plus 4? Yeah, don't second guess yourself. That was easy. But you were going, wait a second. Right here. Okay. What if I told you that 4 plus 4 is 13? What is your quick, less than 0.25 second ancient brain reaction to the idea that 4 plus 4 is 13? It's wrong. It's false, right? 4 plus 4 is 8. Base 10 math. 4 plus 4 is 13. Base 5 math. Think of different bases of math as different journeys that people walk. Okay? You walk a base 10 journey. You have a base 10 brain, math speaking. A truth to you is 4 plus 4 is 8. When your base 10 brain hears a 4 plus 4 is 13, it goes, that's wrong. What you want to work towards is this. I was told that 4 plus 4 is 8, and that is actually true in my world. Now you suggest to me that 4 plus 4 is 13. Tell me more. I'm curious. That is the growth mindset. The person who continuously learns. Hard to do though. You know why? Because open-mindedness requires ouch. Any final questions before I give you my story and we sign off? Any final questions? Was it helpful? Did I give you a different take on inclusion and diversity? Thinking of it from a human behavior perspective, right? It's not that we dislike other people or hate other people oftentimes. It's because we just like to be lazy and hang out with people who are like us. But that leads to seeing other people as enemies at times, if other people reinforce the idea that people are enemies. All right, final story, quick story, because I don't have much time. This is to get to your question earlier. I was born in Vietnam, came to the United States in 1970. My mom married an American serviceman to take us here, right? The war was escalating. She marries this person to take us here. The person she married turned out to be a bad person, bad guy. I grew up in some tough places around LA. I can actually wear the t-shirt straight out of Compton. I grew up in Compton, Long Beach, Bellflower areas. But that environment was not the worst of my situation. The worst of my situation was my stepfather. Very physically and psychologically abusive to my mom and me. Bad guy. He was such a bad guy that in 1984, he was convicted of raping my little sister, his own daughter. And then in June of 1985, my sister runs away from home with a friend of hers because of what happened. 1 month later, my mom gets a phone call from a detective in the King County Sheriff's Department, Seattle, Washington. And the detective says to my mom, "Mrs. Robbins, we found the other girl your daughter ran away with, but that other girl had been sexually assaulted and bludgeoned to death." My mom frantically asks the detective questions. Every answer to my mom's questions was, "We don't know. Where's my daughter? We don't know. Where's the, what do you think happened? We don't know. We don't know." That was 1985. It's 2022 now, and we still don't know. How many of you have ever heard of a guy by the name of Gary Ridgway? The serial killer. My sisters believed he wanted this many victims, or a victim of a copycat. After that phone call, my mom goes into a deep depression. Not many happy days in her life after that phone call. But there came a time when she was happy, at least temporarily. June of 1991, that's when I get married to my wife, Donna, out in Michigan. My mom flies out for a week-long wedding celebration. It's the happiest I'd seen her since that phone call. With the wedding is completed, she flies back home to Washington State. A few months later, in September '91, I began graduate school at Michigan State. My mom and I are separated by 1,500 plus miles, so we talk on the phone every week. On this particular phone call in late October '91, we're talking and we're sharing. As we're about to close, before we hang up, my mom says to me, she says, "Dong," my Vietnamese name. "Dong, you have Donna to take care of you now," she says, and we hang up. A week later, in early '91, I get a phone call from Washington State. I expect to be my mom, but it turns out to be a detective from the Benton County Sheriff's Department, where my mom was living at the time. And in so many words, the detective says to me, he says, "Mr. Robbins, we have some unfortunate news. We just found your mom, and she was hanging in her shower." A week after my mom says to me, "You have Donna to take care of you now," my mom takes her own life. Up until the point of my mom's suicide, I hated being Asian. Because growing up, I heard so many negative messages about Asians that my own brain built a negative mental model of people like me. We were told over and over that we were the outsiders, that we didn't belong. I didn't want to be me. The world of race studies, we call that internalized racial oppression. You start to hate the people you come from because you believe all the bad, negative stuff told about where you come from. Do not underestimate the power of words and messages to tear people down, to make them feel like outsiders and cause them social pain. But also do not underestimate the power of words and messages to lift people up, to make them feel like insiders, to take away their pain. If there's anything that was good that came out of my mom's suicide, it could be this: timing of it. It happened the first semester of graduate school. It's that one single incident alone that led me to study what I studied in graduate school. Some of the things we talked about today. It's that one single incident alone to do the work I do today. I do this work that people call diversity and inclusion. I call inclusion and diversity to honor my mom and my little sister and try to create a better world for my 4 kids and their friends. Sometimes we overcomplicate this work, and we overcomplicate it. We give people reasons not to do it. Simplify it to what I said earlier. It's about caring. Care about each other. Listen to people, even when they say things that you don't believe in, and to see them as human beings, and you can disagree. Right? We need that so much in our world today. Right? And as you walk down the halls today in your community, use your modern brain to become self-aware and other-aware, and maybe notice that somebody's feeling like an outsider. They don't feel like they have a tribe. And when you notice that person, come to them and say, "Be part of my tribe. You have a tribe." It comes down to that, right? But it's hard for our brain. You got to practice it. Easy to care for those that are like us. We have to be intentional and mindful for caring about those who are not like us. All right, let's end with everybody stand up. We're gonna end with the preamble to my favorite television series of all time that talks about open-mindedness, Star Trek. Okay, so make the Vulcan peace sign and then repeat after me. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship. I'll say this: Armstrong Enterprise. Our ongoing mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Great job. Well, before you all leave,
And thanks, Anji, for doing all this.
thank you. Steve, if you would come back for just a moment, Corey and I would like to thank you. Corey, if you want to come on up. We just really appreciate you fitting us into a very busy schedule. Before you all leave, we have some raffle prizes. I'll let Corey give you your gift. Thank you so much. So if you were on the line today, we have a raffle for you. So we will look at the list of people who are online and draw your names from that raffle. For those of you all who are in the room, we have an enticing opportunity for you. So we are thinking,
You can sit down, by the way.
you can sit down.
You don't have to keep standing there.
We are thinking about a number between 1 and 50, and whoever comes closest will have the opportunity to win 2 blues tickets. Okay, so anyone enticed to enter the opportunity, a number between 1 and 50.
17.
Wait.
Wait.
I heard,
I
what'd you
heard,
say, Chris?
what did you just say?
I heard,
27.
no,
31. 48. 41. 42.
I heard someone
Wait,
say.
wait. Who was in the 40s?
I said 27.
Okay,
You said what, Amelia?
okay, 41. 41, I heard 41. 48.
47.
It goes to Amelia.
Okay.
The number was 42.
Oh.
You said that.
Did you say it? Okay, you won it too then.
I know I heard.
I couldn't hear. Did you say it loud where we could hear you? You heard it. Amelia,
Saying it loud is part of the game, so.
the gentleman in the back claims that he said 42, so you win the tickets. We'll be fair if that's what you said. Now you. It's fair. Ken said he heard you. So we'll give it to you. Come on up and get your tickets. All right, we got more. We got more prizes. Okay, we're still thinking of numbers. We're thinking of a number between 1 and 50 this time.
Again.
Give us your guesses.
19.
Okay, hold on. Let's step.
Hold up a
establish some
hand.
Quick rules.
Yes.
One guess per person.
Yes. Yes.
2. 22.
45.
Who said 16?
18.
18. Who said 18?
She said 6. What'd you say, Amelia? That's it, Amelia. You won. And a concession pass as well. Okay, we still got some stuff going on here.
2 more.
And if you're watching, we got a raffle for you too. So same prizes we're providing to you all as well. We'll pull from the names. All right, next set of numbers.
Same thing. 1 through 50.
1 through 50.
One guess.
I see the confidence waning in the room.
22.
27.
27.
33.
33.
11.
11.
24.
24.
4.
4.
17.
17. 39.
36.
36.
37.
37.
What'd you say?
Sarah? 5.
That's it, Sarah Ann. You win some Samsung Galaxy.
Close.
All right, last one.
This is not a number question.
Where did I say I met Dr. Robbins? Okay, we're gonna go to another.
Here, let's do it.
We're paying attention.
Let's do, let's just do that.
Okay, we're thinking of one more number between 1 and 50. You get another.
16. 12. 45. 43. 37.
What'd you say?
38.
What'd you say?
38.
Nope.
What'd you say?
34. 36.
Come out of the 30s, y'all.
Yeah, like.
That was everyone? What's your 10?
There was somebody else who got really close. I can't remember who it was.
I think Shuba got close.
Yep. The number was
The number is
7.
7. You win, and oh, you okay?
Yeah, he didn't get the prize.
If there's a different prize you prefer, but this is for a honey baked ham. Yeah, and we can give you another prize. We have other prizes. You all, thank you so much. We got plenty of food left. Encourage our teammates, not classmates, but our teammates to come back, get them a to-go box. Thank you so much. Have a great inclusion week.
Also, the links have been sent out for, I mean, you all know about the town hall tomorrow, but also I sent out the link for the
Oh,
the
Affinities
Mixer
Mixer.
on
Yep.
Friday. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Sonji. Other than that, have a great one. Thanks for coming out.
Take care. Thank you for joining virtually.
You imagine to get